you got the story of the what I call it, I always call it the beginning book of the Bible, and God's covenant with His people, which dream of redemption. So this is just another chapter in the dream of redemption for the chosen seed. So this one we're going to look at primarily well, not primarily. We're going to look at the generation of Isaac, as we did last week. Look at or through prayer, Abraham's servant when they found Isaac a bride, and now we're going to see where Isaac has taken his bride, and now that he's taken a bride, married Rebecca. Rebecca. Mm-hmm. Now she has given. She's pregnant with twins, Jacob and Esau. Two nations, as God tells her, two nations are in her womb. Mm-hmm. And what we see here is we see the story, or really one of the things that you see in the story of Isaac is the tension between different things. We see the tension between his two sons in the womb, the two nations, Isaac and Esau, Esau and Jacob. Mm-hmm. You also see how, as it goes to Jacob's life, the tension between Leah and Rachel, the tension between Jacob and his brother in the dream, tension he has with the ladder from heaven. So it's about the tension. You see the tension that God produces in the lives of people, that He uses in the lives of people, should I say, to bring about His perfect will. So in essence, this lesson is about God's sovereign will in election and predestination. This is what this is really about, because as you're seeing, as we've gone through all the lessons from the very beginning, starting with Abraham, we're starting before Abraham, starting after the fall. But you see what we call the sons of righteousness versus the sons of ungodliness. So it's the children of Seth, and we see where we went from the children of Seth. I'm sorry, to Seth. Not Seth, I mean other boy.
Ham.
His brother.
Cain.
You say
Whose
Seth?
brother?
Japheth, Ham, and
Shem.
Shem. I'm sorry, Shem. Shem, and that seed, which is the God, propagate the godly line. You know, the one goes on down to the families, down to Abraham, from Abraham to Isaac, and then it goes on, getting ready to lead to Jacob. We see what I call ongoing refining of the process of election, an ongoing refining of coming down to that particular chosen seed that leads to Jesus Christ. So what we're going to do today is start out, I want you to, if you would, if you have your appliances with you, go to the London Baptist Confession, 1689. We're going to read chapter 10. My starting point might be my pivot point for the rest of the lesson.
Which number?
Number 10, chapter 10.
Confession, chapter 10.
What is it called?
London Baptist Confession of 1689. Or I should say 1689 London Baptist Confession. The year comes first. Chapter 10.
You said 10.
10. This chapter is called Effectual Calling. And I'm going to read, it's rather, it's not very long. It's about 4 little paragraphs here. And if you're familiar with the confessions at all, whether it's the Westminster Confession, the Canon of Dort, whatever, when it comes to the confession, the Belgic and everything else, but there are two that read almost identical in certain portions. The Westminster Confession, the larger catechism, it reads very similar, or sometimes almost word for word, in the paragraphs that they discuss on certain topics. So in this particular topic, in the London Baptist Confession 1689, chapter 10, which is on the effectual calling, is also primarily word for word that you see in the Westminster Confession and on their doctrine of the effectual call. So I'm going to read. Those whom God has predestined unto life, he is pleased in his appointed and acceptable time effectually to call by his word and spirit out of that state of sin and death in which they are by nature. But by nature, to grace and salvation by Jesus Christ, enlightening their minds spiritually and savingly to understand the things of God, taking away the heart of stone and giving to them the heart of flesh, renewing their wills, and by his almighty power determining them to that which is good, and effectually drawing them to Jesus Christ. So yet so as they come most freely, being made willing by his grace. Being made willing by his grace. Number 2. This effectual call is of God, free and special, grace alone, not from anything, not for anything at all foreseen in man, not for anything, read it again, not for anything at all foreseen in man, which brings me to today's story, nor from any power or any agency in the creature co-working with his special grace. The creature being wholly passive therein, in election for this, we call it. Therein, being dead in sins and trespasses, unto being made quickened and renewed by the Holy Spirit. He is thereby enabled to answer his call and to embrace the grace offered and convey in it, and that by no less power than that which raised up Christ from the dead. Number 3. We'll skip number 3. Number 4. Others not elected, although they may be called by the ministry of the word, and may have some common operations of the Spirit, yet not being effectually drawn by the Father, they neither will nor can truly come to Christ, and therefore cannot be saved. Much less can men that do not receive the Christian religion be saved. But they never so diligent to frame their lives according to the light of nature and the laws of their religion do they profess. So what this is talking about is, what we talk about is election and predestination. And if you remember, even before in today's lesson, before the 2 boys were born, Jacob and Esau were born, it makes known that they were, in the Hebrew word, reached very like they're butting heads in the womb. And we know that even after they were born, even though God had told their mother in advance, one would serve the other. The younger would be ruler over the younger, older would serve the older would serve the younger. And that there was to be a reversal. Even though God had told her that in advance, before the boys were even born, and before they had even done anything, you'll see, nevertheless, how God's will or providence work out in people's lives. You know, we always talk about in Romans, both the good and the bad working together to bring about the perfect will of God. God uses everything, because this is what we need to understand, that God uses everything to intertwine, we call confluence. Confluence makes everything has to glorify God because it comes from God. Even the evil that we see, when it's confluenced with good, it works to God's perfect will. Otherwise, He wouldn't allow it, He wouldn't ordain it, it wouldn't have been. So the point I'm driving to is that we will see where Esau and Jacob have their conflict, not only in the womb, but as you see after the womb. And that it was God's divine will to effectually call Jacob, whereas he never, and that's what we read Romans also, Paul says about that. And it was never God's design or his foreknowledge to ever call Esau effectually. So therefore, that's what we call by passing over, reprobation. See, the thing I want to stress to us in all these stories that we talk about election and predestination is God does not do any injustice to us at all. We are naturally in a state of fallenness. If God so chooses by what design, we don't understand. If He so desires to choose us and call us effectually, that's going to happen. If He chooses not to, He passes over us. That's what we sing the song. That's what it's really song. The song we sing, Pastor Not. That's the meaning behind that song. That was the writer's intent. Let me put it like that. I don't know whether we understand it or not. The writer's intent behind that song was, Pass Me Not, was that God in His sovereign grace would not lead you into a state of reprobation, but would not pass you over, but that He would effectually call you unto a state of special grace. So, what we're saying here, I'm saying to you in this lesson is that what you're seeing between, this is always my way. What we're seeing here about Jacob, yeah, thank you. Jacob and Esau is that God chose Esau for His divine purpose, and He passed over. I'm sorry, Jacob. He passed over Esau. Now I want to go down to further confirm that. Let's start out first with Romans 9. Paul belabors this point because the question comes up: is God unfair? And it's easy for us, from a human perspective, to say God is unfair, because we don't understand God and we don't comprehend God and His design, and His purpose, and His reason for doing things. But we think we do, and so therefore we are making an assessment. If He doesn't do a certain thing, He's unfair. He's not a just God. And what we all need to remember is that whether it was reprobation or effectual calling, God didn't have to do none of it. And that's what those of us that are being saved need to remember. And that's what the Word teaches, that God could have just left all of us instead of darkness. God, but He did not. I don't know why He did. That ain't my putting. He ain't putting why He did, but He didn't. He did not leave all of us in a state of perpetual unenlightenment. Let's go to Romans 9, starting verse 11. Pardon me. Romans 9. Verse 11. Though, referring to Isaac, referring to Esau and Jacob, though they were not yet born and had done nothing, either good or bad, and this is what we need to understand what it says right here, what Paul says. In order that God's purpose of election might stand or continue, not because of works, but because of Him, that is God, who calls. This call is not the outward call, this is the effectual call. He was told, the older will serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated, quote Malachi. And what then shall we say? Is there injustice of God? Is there injustice on God's part? By no means. For He says to Moses, I will have what? Mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So then, it depends not on human's will or exertion, but on God, who has mercy. For the scripture says of Pharaoh, for this very purpose I have raised you up, that I might show my power in you, that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. So then He has mercy on whomsoever He wills, and He hardens whomsoever He wills. Okay? Now, what I was doing here, as you know, I'm trying to lay the groundwork for you to understand what God is doing in the life of Jacob and Esau here. Even though, like I said, our choices are our choices. Nevertheless, we act according to our will. That's why when we are dead and lost in our trespasses, we can act only according to that dead will. But when God gives us a heart of flesh versus the heart of stone, our will and disposition changes and makes us have a different choice. That's the purpose of regeneration. And this is what you're seeing here in this story here. Even though these were Jacob's choices and Esau's choices were their choices. And it's because God called one and didn't call the other. And as I said, that's we don't understand why that's the way it is, but that's the way it is. And that's why I say God does it by His sovereign election. God's sovereign of His own accord, not according to nothing else. Nobody else's desire or will. He decides in His own will what pleases him. So therefore, let's look at the lesson. My cheat sheet. I think I have a question for you. Excuse me. And my question is very easy because we just read the answer to you as well ago. Why does God, in his divine, sovereign will, use election and predestination? We just read to you now. We just read that. So you knew the answer to it already. Why does God use election and predestination to accomplish this divine will?
And you're looking for more than because you can.
Yeah, you're right, exactly. Look for more than because you can.
Because he chose to.
To display his power and that his name might be proclaimed.
What did Paul say? That let's go back to Romans 9. There's two verses there. I think I'm looking for. I want you to pull, kind of like hit on for me. Romans 9. I'm sure what verse it was.
Yeah, I was reading this.
I look at verse 11, it says, though they were not yet born, and had not done nothing either good or bad, in order that God's purpose of election might continue, not because of the works, but because of him who called.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. So he said that in order that God's purpose of election might continue, not because of what you and I would do, or would do, or could do, but because of him who calls. That is because of who him who calls, because of who God's called, effectually, to do his appointed will.
Just like he did when Abraham and Sarah, when they had Isaac, and they tried to go do it their way, and they had Ishmael, but Ishmael wasn't the chosen one, Isaac was.
Right.
And then now, even so, when God told Rebecca that the older was going to serve the older, it's God's, I guess, his providence, divine providence of how he wanted things to line up.
According to the purpose of his will. And if we could just try to a little bit just grapple with that notion that God does things according to his will, with nothing in mind about you and me. If we could just wrestle with that could mess with you. We can just wrestle with that and deal with that and learn to accept that. I think it'll make life a lot easier for a lot of us that say we're Christians. Because we can understand, because a lot of things we experience in life, not just our salvation, and make sure this understand here. This is primarily about salvation, but this is about more about salvation. These are acts in your life that leads to salvation. But if we can understand that God is so involved in so many things of our lives that we take for granted, or we don't even give a second thought, we just go banally about our business, thinking that things isn't happening, and God is nowhere in control. God is nowhere bringing about His purpose that He's designed before the create, as Paul would say, before the creation of the world, before any of us even born and conceived of. That would make a whole difference, I think, in how we see who God is. Because I think any other view of God is too little. I really do. And I think a lot of us have a small view of who God is. And then I've said, let's go through the lesson.
So it seems like 17, you were about to talk about
17.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Instructs us as well.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
In verse 17, he says that God's purpose will. Verse 17 of chapter 9, that I might display my power in you, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth.
In other words, he's sovereign. And I want to display my sovereignty. And because I'm sovereign, I can display my power any way I want to. In the earth. In the choices that I have made. In choosing or passing over. He's sovereign. It's reminded us that he is, that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world, and there's dwelling in it. The earth, the sky, the sea. Remember we talked about creation earlier? To make sure that all the whole cosmos is God. And he's not set it aside so they run by itself, but he's superintendent and watches over it and designs what he's about. Okay, let's go to the story itself. Genesis 25, 19.
If I can just say the verses before that, I did not know that Abraham got married again
Keturah.
and had children.
Mm-hmm.
And
Keturah was the black one.
like 6 or 7 children again. I'm like, and he lived to be 175. That
Yes.
was just amazing.
It is. Yeah, Keturah. That's what that time we should do a lot of Black history programs. I was in the military. Sometimes we have speakers, and of course when people wanted to always show that there's black people in the Bible and everything else, they would point to Keturah as being an Egyptian lady that Abraham married. Keturah, and she had several children for him.
Yes, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But Hagar was Egyptian as well.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
So it just didn't start in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how we,
in the 60s, what you mean?
meaning that every time you turn around, or even like now, white men want black women.
The race people,
Race,
the-
interracial.
They're all black in my opinion.
Yeah. See, I think people tend to forget that God doesn't see things the way we see things.
That's
He
true.
doesn't see things in black and white.
That sure don't.
It doesn't do with the color of what we call the so-called race. Because I even though I know what science says, I'm not a scientist, so I have what science say. It's one race, the human race.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We like to call it, if we don't call them ethnic groups, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I've been taught to do all that stuff in my profession. But I know the truth.
Yeah. God
God made man.
Mm-hmm.
And all things come from God. And all people come from that one man, Adam. Anyway, let's go to the top of the chapter and read that. And we come out to the lesson. Chapter 25. This is after the death of Sarah. Not the death of Sarah. Yeah, the death of Sarah.
Yeah.
And Isaac brings Rebecca. Well, not Isaac. What's his name? The servant brings.
Servant.
I can't think of his name right now. Eleazar.
Yeah, he
Brings
Rebecca.
Rebecca
Yeah.
to be Isaac's wife. He takes her in to be a wife, and he is going on with his life. So Abraham goes on with his life also. And it says, Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuha. Jokshan fathered Sheba and Dedan. These are countries. And sons of Dedan were Ashurim, let us Shum, who that is, and Luim-Mim. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Ether, Hanok, Abida, Ibida, whatever it is, and Eldah. And these were the children of Keturah, quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
See, remember what God told Abraham? He become the father of
Many
the
nations.
nation. And so it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. And so Midian, I'm assuming that's the country Midian,
Mhm.
the Midianites.
And this came from
Where Noah went to, I mean not Noah, Moses.
Moses.
Went to
Exactly.
the Midianites and found
His wife. Zipporah, exactly.
And Sheba, the queen of Sheba,
Sheba.
is
Mhm.
from that area.
Exactly.
I mean, it's really fascinating.
It is. And I know we love to pass over genealogy. There's a lot of hidden messages, or not really hidden. Well, they're stated, but they're not detailed. There's a lot of messages and information in the genealogy. The genealogy is there to remind you, because you're going to see it again somewhere. That name or that derivative pop up again somewhere in the Bible that has a connection to that statement, that's stated well in advance. Because all these nations need His name, and people these will become pivotal players in the life of Israel as a friend or a foe. That tension we talked about earlier in their lives to bring about God's perfect will. God is so wonderful. We never understand the tension that we see, that we think is so confusing, that drives us crazy. It gives us anxiety. We can't sleep at night. But God is so orchestrating these things to bring about His perfect will. And it says here, and these were the chapter verse 7. These are the days and the years of Abraham's life. 107. I'm sorry, I need to go back. 5. Abraham gave all he had to Isaac. See how he passed the blessing on now. But to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts, like he did the other what's his name? Earlier. Ishmael's mother, earlier. And while he was still living, he sent, it says, and while he was still living, this is the promise of God's covenant, and while he was still living, he sent them away from his son Isaac. It's like they're by accident. That's to pinpoint to you that he was the chosen seed, and he made it where there was no encumbrances upon Isaac's promise of the covenant. Eastward to the east country. And these are the days and the years of Abraham's life, 175 years. So, if I remember correctly, I think when Sarah died, he was 137, was it not? I think it's what it said in the last week. I think it was 137 years old, I think it was. Something like that. So that means he lived roughly 37 and 35 is what? 40 what? 30 something. 30 more years. And it says, and Abraham breathed his life, and he died in a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave at Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, east of Mamre, and the field that Abraham purchased from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with Sarah, his wife. After the death of Abraham, God blessed Isaac, his son, and Isaac settled in Beer Lahora, whoever that is. And these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar, the Egyptian Sarah's servant, bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael, named in order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, and Kedar, Abbil, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tima, Jetur, Nephish, and Kedema. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, by their villages, and by their encampment. 12 princes rather, according to their tribes. These are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. He breathed his life and died, and was gathered to his people. You see what it says? Each time he died, it said to tell you to his people. That's on purpose too, because you know that Abraham was buried with who considered the godly people, and Ishmael with those that are ungodly, with their own people. And it says, and they settled in Havilah of Shur, which is opposite Egypt, in the direction of Assyria. He settled over against all his kinsmen. In other words, opposite his kinsmen. Now here comes the story for today. And you see, if you notice what Moses does and all these this and that, each time he goes to another continuation of the covenant, he says that these are the generations. The word is toledoth. It's important because he's saying that this is a different generation than that one. But the covenant is renewed, picked up, and carried on because it's passed on. Because Isaac received it from Abraham, who was passed on. Now it says, and these are the toledoth of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah. He was 40 years old now. Very mad. He took Rebekah. The daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean, of Padan-aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah his wife conceived. Their children, let's stop right there a little further. You see, it's almost an understatement in the book here, the tension between Isaac and Rebekah. It's not stated clearly at all, but given what happens and you given the life to that child, you see that there was a very dysfunctional family. As a matter of fact, even though we tell you in prophecy, not prophecy, but in redemption, that Isaac is a picture of Christ, and he indeed is a picture of Christ. But remember, as I always tell you, every example or every what's the word for example? Another word? No word. I can't think of it right now. I'm having lunch this morning. At some point, every example breaks down. If you can push it to so far of a limit, then it doesn't match anymore. Analogy to something before. Thank you. Every analogy breaks down at some point. And yes, indeed, Isaac was indeed a picture of Christ by the role he played. Remember, and the most important one is in 22, chapter 22 of Genesis. But they were like ramming the bush, everything else. But other examples too, you can see the parallel between Christ and the picture, the role that Isaac played. But Isaac and Rebekah had lots of tension in that family. For whatever reason, they didn't tell us. But before this tension rises, let's see what it says here at the part. It says that he had been married to Rebekah. He married Rebekah at 40. And some years had passed. As a matter of fact, I forgot how many. I read somewhere later on what I forgot how many years old.
He was 60.
Okay, so it's 20 years have passed. That's a long time. And remember now, he had been told by his father Abraham that he was the covenant heir. And he knows Abraham's story, how God had blessed him, how God had sent him his servant down to get a wife for him, and his role he played. But it's 60 years, 20 years has passed. And Rebekah has no children, no offspring. Very similar to Sarah. But one thing Isaac learned from his father, and he learned it well, and thank God he did, which was what? Huh? Wait on God. Don't get ahead of God. He learned in this instance, don't get ahead of God.
He didn't do what he
But what did they did? What did he do?
He got ahead.
He prayed.
He prayed.
Oh, yeah.
Remember now, when he got his wife, the servant prayed to get a wife. He got a wife. He prayed to get his servant, and Abraham, and of course him too, because Isaac was a praying man too, praying for a wife when he found him in the field. He prayed to get a wife, but he also prayed to get a child, not get ahead of God, like his father had done. And because remember now, Isaac remembers very well how he was taunted by his older brother Ishmael, and he knows the story of why Abraham and Sarah shoot him away. He knows the story very well. So he puts this in mind. He don't say, we're gonna get a servant this time and do what mom and daddy did. You know, he prays to God, and when he prays to God, God answers his prayer, because God has promised them. Remember, God's a God of covenant. God never fails to keep his promise. And it says,
I'm sorry.
uh-huh.
So you just did something really that we need to learn, right, as we study the Bible. Verse 21, as we discussed, that one verse was a 20-year span. right? And so a lot of times we go into the Word and we act like, we're reading the newspaper.
All the ones
And we
sing.
act like things just happen,
And
boom,
one scene.
boom, boom, one day after the next. But, it takes time, right, to dig into and figure out what was going on. The other part you mentioned, Ishmael, right, the part that we read, Ishmael had 12 sons.
Mm-hmm.
And so the tension that you're talking about, certainly at this point, they knew nothing about 12 tribes of Israel. That wasn't going to come until Jacob's sons, right?
Exactly.
But here it's like, that tension had to be like, Lord, is he the real one?
Is he the real one? And it's real. And that mirrors every Christian's life. When you're seeking God for your well-being, when you're seeking to please God, if you're seeking God's will. Seeking God's will is not an easy thing. Prayer is not an easy thing.
Mm-hmm.
It takes lots of energy, lots of focus, lots of reminding yourself to pray and to pray right, to pray God's will, your kingdom come, your will be done.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm sure as Isaac, just like we do, so he's going through his life, going through obstacles and bumps and bruises.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably tempted to try some of Abraham's tactics, but he remembers that his servant master prayed for him and prayed for a wife. If God can give me a wife, God can surely keep that promise. God can surely keep the promise of give me a seed, give me a son.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, they prayed for him, and then voila, behold, what's her name? Rebecca is pregnant. And Rebecca she's troubled because she's thinking, all this pain I'm having, these these rats in my head, my womb, are chasing each other, they're bumping their heads. According to scholars, the word for the pain she's having is bumping heads. They're bumping heads. Esau and Jacob in the womb, bumping heads. And she goes, her anxiety leads her to pray to God. Mm-hmm. What's going on here, Lord? And he says there's two nations. That's attention again. Two different kinds. They're twins, but they're different. In your womb. And then he tells her the story. He says, that's what it says. It says, what verse is it again?
Well, 22. You kind of summarized 22, but we didn't read it yet.
Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to 21. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her. And she said, if it is thus, why is this happening to me? She just said, so Lord, tell me why. This pregnancy, after all this time I waited, now I'm pregnant, why is it so hard? Why is this pain, this struggle that I'm having that I'm feeling going inside my womb? So she went to inquire. She inquired of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people within you shall be divided. Pay attention there. One shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger, which is totally against their customs of the Middle East at this time. In our places, even now, it's for the younger to get the lion's share. God's telling her, you have 2 nations in your womb, and there's struggle there. And he said, and I'm going to reverse the order of things where y'all do things. I'm going to tell you that I'm ordaining that the younger should rule over the older, and the older, and he should be stronger than the other. Now, if you look at the life of Jacob, let's go a little further here. If you look at the life of Jacob was an absolute rascal. If there's anything such as a rascal, he was that. So that's where it proves what God said in the Word. There was nothing that God foresaw in Jacob that would make him choose Jacob because of his goodness. Jacob was a rascal from the get-go. Well, because they're bumping heads in the womb. And his name, Yaakov, really means heel catcher. He wrestled. He's like, you going first, but I'm right on your heel, brother. I'm at your heel. I'm stepping at your heel like a dog bite. You ever seen a dog try to bite you? How you get all on that heel? And when he comes out, usually when twins are born, there's usually some time between them for the delivery. But according to this here, there was no time between. Jacob came out attached to his heel. When Esau popped out, there's Jacob's hand on that heel, holding him out. And that's what we call Jacob the supplanter, because he was deceitful in his nature. But God chose Jacob. And thank God in his goodness, his sovereignty, when he chooses us in spite of ourselves. And that's the point I want to make known to us as Christians. God chooses us as believers in spite of ourselves. Because he loves us with eternal love. A love that we don't understand. And I'm so happy for that. Because I'm a rascal too. And it says, and when her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were two twins. There were twins in her womb. They first came out red. Esau came out. He said Esau, but the Bible says he was hairy, red hair all over. That's where we get the word Edom from. And Seir, as a matter of fact, Edom. The Edomites dwelt in the Red Mountains, and the city called Seir is what Esau finally settled that. That's where the word Seir and Edom come in. It's tied to the word hairy and red. But also, you can see here, there's a lot of play on the word red in today's lesson. The porridge that Jacob fed him was red. And I don't know what it symbolizes, but it's something there. Because it says, we'll get to it. Let's read it. And it says, he came, completed. The first came out red, all of his body like a hairy cloak. So they called his name Esau. Afterwards, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. I look at the word in Hebrew, with strong. The word for heel is Yaakov, Yhakove. Yaakov means heel holder, or supplanter, and the word is for, and he is Ya the umbach, but not umbach, some kind of hash mark. Yaakov is Jacob's name, and it says that he came out. That's why they call him Jacob, because of him holding the heel. Because heel means Yaakov. So anyway, it says his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. So that means it's 20. You saw 20 years expired there from the time he married her, and that's a generation almost in itself. Yeah. So that can make you real weary.
Wow.
20 years, I'm not sure I can hang on 20 years. I'm not sure I can hang on 20 years for a blessing. I'm too impatient. And I know God has to be working me. I'm being odd. Pardon me. But anyway, let's read on. And when the boys grew up, Isaac was skillful. When the boys grew up, Isaac was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man. I read what some scholars said about the quiet man. It says that it's saying that that Jacob was a man of peace, was a domesticated kind of man. Whereas Jacob was like a ruffian. Not Jacob, Esau was a ruffian. As a matter of fact, it says Esau was really a rude man. And you can see later on how really crude he is. He was a crude man. He was a hard man. As a matter of fact, if you look at what it says here, everybody had been a hunter. If you remember in the early generations of Genesis, it refers back to Nimrod. Nimrod was the great hunter, remember, also, who was an evil man. And it says he was skillful in hunting. And it says in verse 27, and when the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. Jacob was a quiet man. He dwelt in tents, domesticated man. Isaac loved Esau What it says here? I see, catch your attention again. Isaac loved Esau because, it says, because he ate of his game. But Rebekah loved Jacob. So all the time while I guess Isaac, Esau would go out with his father probably in the fields to hunt, whatever they did to make a living. Or I'm sure he probably got a hunting skill from it they had initially. He would take Esau with him, and they bonded real strongly in that sense. So when Isaac got old and wanted venison or game, he would, not supposed to domesticate animals, he would send Esau out and go hunt for daddy and bring daddy his favorite meat, you know. But Jacob was also what we call a mama's boy. And it doesn't say that for real. That's me. So we say it says domesticated. And because Rebekah loved him. That's what we call mama's boy. But so I'm sure he learned a more delicate way, a more quiet and sensible way. And obviously had learned how to cook. Because it said, and as a matter of fact, it is interesting to believe or not, I'd be willing to bet you that the porridge that he made may have even had some venison in that Esau had even hunted in times past. Because really what the stuff is red soup. It's a red soup. Mm-hmm. And some people say it has lentils in it with meat in it, which is probably venison, the wild game. But at any rate, the point being is that you see the crudeness or the impulsivity of Esau in his nature versus the passiveness of Jacob. And it says, once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field and he was exhausted. As a matter of fact, according to Hebrew scholars, when it says we're exhausted, they said that he was so famished, his tongue was so parched to the roof of his mouth, so thirsty and so hungry, he was literally at the point of thinking he would die. And when you're impulsive, what do you do when you're impulsive? Whatever the moment calls for is what you do. If it means doing everything, but anything, I don't care. I want it now.
It's like desperation.
Desperation.
I'm saying we make bad decisions too.
Right, it is. Remember there's an old saying about HALT, I'm teaching before, HALT, never make decisions when you hungry, angry, lazy, or tired. Halt. And this is what Esau does. He's tired, he's hungry, and he's angry. Only about being lazy at this point, but he's hungry and he's tired. And it says, and he said he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew. For I am exhausted. I'm about to die, man." Therefore, his name became Edom. That's why we get the Edomites. The Edomites were the children of Esau. It means red. Man, that's the word Seier or Seir. Seir was a little place where the red people lived also. And it says, and Jacob said, Jacob had long, and I'm not sure, in my mind, I'm sure, Rebekah had probably told him more than once what God had told him. Because remember now, he spent time with his mama. And Isaac spent time with the other boy. And I'm sure after all those years of him being around mama and mom and daddy, mom and son, loving each other, and caring for each other, that she told him what God had told her years before they were born. Days before they were born. And Jacob never forgot that. And Jacob wanted that birthright. But Jacob didn't have to do the seek to get the birthright because God had ordained it. But God uses our decisions to bring about black influence, the good and bad working together. Remember how black influence means? I tell you about the two rivers. There's the river in Ohio called, up in Pennsylvania somewhere called, but the Monongahela and the what's the other river there called? The Allegheny. Those two rivers run separately, but at some point they run together. They confluence. And it's called the what? The Ohio. So confluence when the good and the bad runs together to make one. What God does is God uses our bad decisions. It's your choice. But he has a design. He uses it to bring about other things to bring about his perfect will for what he wants. So Jacob, in his deceitfulness, decides, I'm going to help God out here. I'm going to get this birthright. So he finds his brother at a vulnerable point. Desperate. He could have been loving and waited on God to do this differently, but he didn't. But God chose to let him do that, and he uses his purpose. He says, "Say what? You want some of this food?" He says, "Sell me your birthright." now. He made a promise to him now. Not later, now he said. Esau said, I'm about to die. Man, I'm about to die. What is a birthright to me? That's what he's saying in this. What use is a birthright to me? Jacob said, swear. Remember, in those days, a swear word was before God. And it was like, you didn't need no signed contract. Your word was your bond. He said, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. See, and what it shows here, it shows how we are so impatient and we are so impulsive. We want everything now. We don't want to wait. We don't want to do no suffering. Pain is for somebody else. Pain's not for me. Let someone else do the suffering and pain. And I want it now, so I'll do what it is because it's convenient to get what I need for my immediate gratification right now. But Jacob also was like right now. Sell me your birthright right now. Not later, right now. So Jacob saw that and took advantage of it. And it says, and then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. And he ate and drank and rose and went his way. It lets you know that he was famished and he was thirsty as all get out. And it basically said he ate his belly full. He drank till his thirst was quenched. He was satisfied. See, it's appetite and desire of life that trips us up. And you see here, it was his appetite and Jacob's appetite for whatever it is that drives us that drove him to the point to make these kind of decisions. And it says that Esau took advantage of the food Jacob gave him. Jacob's happy to get the birthright. But he said, it's yours, brother. I don't want it. What's it to me? And even though after he refreshed himself with food and water, it says what it does. He went his way. He's cavalier about it. He has no, see, this is what I said. God doesn't have to create fresh evil in us. We're evil by our very nature. What God has to do is create fresh goodness in us by giving us a heart of stone, a heart of flesh, versus the heart of stone that we possess. And this is what happens to Esau here. He's no birthright, and remember now, all these in this same time, it was full well known what was the right of the firstborn. The firstborn of the family was to carry on the family tradition, was to be the judicial head of the family. And he said, I don't want to be no leader. I don't want to be the judicial head of this family. They ain't nothing to me. It's nothing. As long as I got my bow and arrow, whatever you hunt with, and go out and find me and game when I eat and be happy, I don't need that. Anyway, it says, thus Esau, and the Bible says here, he despised. See, this was a blessing from God. This is the covenant promise. The birthright came with the covenant promise. Esau was to lead the family in godliness, in God's posterity. But he relinquished it. He threw it away. It don't mean nothing to me. He said he despised his birthright. That was his full choice. God didn't have to make that in him. That was his choice by his nature. But we see God allowed him and left him to himself. Why? I don't know. Why? I really don't care. And it's important for real. But we know that he did. He left him to himself. But he moved Jacob in a different direction. And that produces in the lesson.
Amen.
So what I want to make sure I stress here, as I said earlier, is that God is sovereign in His election and His predestination. And I know that I don't say this to many people. I say it to my family a lot. I say it to Tanya a lot, and kids. A lot of us get in America, Black Americans, if we get in America, we get really upset at the condition of Black America, and rightfully so. But I think the one thing that a lot of us really forget is that even in our plight of coming to this country in slavery, as a result of that coming to this country in slavery, and the development and the evolution, or devolution, whatever you call it, God has chosen to call many of us unto Himself through that process. If we were left in Mother Africa, run around in pagan territory and pagan gods, which a lot of people are killing pyramids here. How dare you talk about our ancestors like that? But we don't understand how God orchestrates things, design things to bring a people about the way He wants to. And if we look at that thing, I think we look at our history as a black people in America a little bit differently. See that in spite of all the struggle and this evil still going on, God is using these things to bring about a people for Himself out of us, as well as other people. And I see that people say it could have been a different way. Yeah, it could have. But God, for whatever reason, designed it to be that way. And the fact of it is, it wouldn't have happened, what's people saying? It wouldn't have happened and couldn't have happened had God not ordained it and allowed it to be. So praise God for being the sovereign God He is.
Amen.